Sketch here. Today I'm going to show you how you can take two animals of your choice and combine them in Photoshop to create a brand new species of your own. So that means that you guys could either create something really cool like a lion, which is a guinea pig and a lion, or you can also create a hairless pig, which I think is actually quite a masterpiece. This is a really fun project and there are a lot of different ways to go about it. I'm going to go and try to show you multiple ways to make both of these. If one of these interests you more than the other, you can fast forward back and forth. I'll put a chapter marker in there so you can just skip ahead. All right, let's get started. So first of all, one thing that you need to know is before you even start putting together anything in Photoshop, you have to make sure that you pick animals that have similarities in regards to their features. So for the pig and the hairless cat, what I found they had in common was they were kind of pink, and while a pig isn't exactly hairless, it does have not as much hair as the hairless as an animal usually does. So combining them makes it a bit easier. And then regards to the guinea pig and the lion, obviously these are both really furry creatures, so you know that you're going to be able to combine them pretty easily. It's when you start mixing up animals that don't have any kind of features in common, like color, or what the outside, like their coating is, if it's fur, if it's scales, etc. It's when you try to put together, let's say, a lion on top of a hairless cat. The contrast makes it almost too much where it doesn't seem it would be believable. So when you're going to look up your animals, you want to take some time to really think about if they would work together. Now, in searching in Google Images, you always want to make sure you take time to find the most high quality image, because in Photoshop, the higher quality image, the more editing power you have. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll look up my lion photo. And a really good way to look up high quality pictures to make sure that you don't even have any come up that aren't is, let me go ahead and do this here. Oh, sorry, Google. So you go to Tools and you're going to select here size. And I usually like to pick large. And so all of a sudden, it's just going to take out anything that isn't a large photo. And so when you go to save it, you know that it's going to be a good quality. So this is the picture that I used. And when you select it, you just can't drag and drop onto your desktop. You got to give it time to download. And then you're just going to hit Control, click, and then save image as, and then give it a title, obviously. So you would call it lion. I've already saved this picture here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of time in regards of info on how to download the best photo. So let's go ahead and get started in Photoshop. So when you open up Photoshop, what you're going to want to do is open up a new project. Now, it doesn't really matter what you tend to do. You could either go new and then pick a certain size. So for our class, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and select print, and that it's going to be an A5 document. And then it depends on how you want it, if you want to have it in portrait or if you want to have it in landscape. I actually selected portrait by accident, and I want it to be in landscape because I already see here that my line is in a landscaped manner. So A5, I can choose my orientation here, and I'm going to go ahead and title this Playing Darwin, which is the assignment. And if you want to change the background color, it could be white, black, or transparent. It really doesn't matter because in the end, the animal is going to go over it. So let's go ahead and do it. All right. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and drag in first the background. So I got my lion here. And I bring him in. And you can, if you want, you can kind of make him stretch to fit. I'm going to be printing these out, so that's why I asked that they be on A5 paper, because that's what we set them on as. But you can kind of see that it distorts things a little bit. So if you just want to keep it a normal size, that's totally fine. And right now, it doesn't seem like it's really good quality, but I'm just in this transform mode. So if I hit enter, then it's going to go ahead and stick out being pretty perfect. All right, so once you have your background image picked, all right, you feel really happy with how you have it set out, then what you're going to do, this is one way that you can combine two animals. So first I'm going to drop in the guinea pig onto the page, and it doesn't really quite matter how you do this. Like, you can make it smaller or bigger. Sometimes if you want, you can work with the opacity over here and turn it down a bit so you can see where you would want the head to be. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding something called a layer mask, and we are going to erase very easily So let's kind of make it like this. And remember, we'll be able to transform if we want. So I'll go ahead and bump this up a little bit more. So essentially what a layer mask does, it puts over like a mask over on a certain color. So it's down here. So when you apply a layer mask to something, you see how it painted it white. So yes, you could erase the background of the guinea pig and try to just leave the head, which is what I'm gonna do. But if you erase, which erase is over here, what happens is erase is permanent. So anything that you decide to take away, so if I'm on my, yes, I'm gonna grab, so anything that erase, I can't ever bring back. And that is sometimes okay, but if you make a mistake, you're gonna have to start all over again. That's where the layer mask is really good. So if you notice, so I click back onto my layer mask and I see that it is white. So the opposite of white would be black. So I would go to my paintbrush over here and I wanna make sure that I have the right size and also the right kind of brush. 900 is really big, so I was using it for something else. So I can change the size over here. And I probably want my hardness to be a little bit better, but this is probably the best kind of brush. And then you can affect the edges, but I'm gonna leave it alone. So I have my brush selected, maybe actually make the hardness a little bit less. And then now you're gonna see that I can still erase, but let's say all of a sudden I did this. No, well, it actually hasn't really happened. I can go down over here and switch the colors and then just bring it right back. So that's why I really enjoy using layer masks for this project, because you can take away little by little and go back and forth and check. So here we go. I'm just going to kind of erase around. Slowly you're starting to see the animal, the line come through. So I can make my brush a little bit smaller because I want to get rid of all of that white, because I definitely know it's just not going to work. All right. And remember, I felt like I took away a little bit too much, so I'll just switch it back and bring that back. And so you go back and forth like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward this a bit because it might be a little boring for you, and then we'll catch up on how to adjust our face. All right, and we're back. So a couple of changes I ended up doing. I actually ended up picking a brush that had a little bit more of a softer edge, because I found that that hard edge was just cutting out a bit too much. But as you can see right now, it's actually starting to come together a bit, but there's still a few things I want to do. One that would be really good is I would click out of the paintbrush and I would do Command T. And now you can start adjusting a bit to fit the gerbil around as you like. And so for me, I feel like this is going to look good because I'm still going to make some other changes. So as you can see, the gerbil here is a little bit like cooler and a more blue tone, and our lion is a really great like orange warm color. So what I want to do is, with my layer mask, I actually want to apply a mask to that selection. So all that's been colored. So I just click on the mask. And then now it's going to select the area here. And if I go to my adjustments, and let's see, if I choose, I think I want to do a bit of a color balance. So if I wanted to make it a little bit more red and a bit more yellow there. It's starting to blend in a bit. I don't want to make it overkill a little bit too much, but it's only happening to the areas that I have selected here. So you could also, let's say if you wanted to add something else, I actually need to do a bit more erasing with my animal, because I just noticed all this area right here and I do not want that whatsoever. I just want it to be my awesome little gerbil. All right. And then the same thing goes for here. I was noticing there was some red, and I just wanted it to be the face that got adjusted, nothing else. So that's, I mean, this is just another example of why layer mask looks really well. And what the easy thing is, then you can just select your guinea pig, you know, your mask, and make sure it's not this, it's the mask. Click, add another mask to the selection, and then it's going to show you still a bit of what's selected. And it's actually really easy to go into quick selection and deselect certain things. And then let's go back into, I wonder if I want to make his face. We can change the levels, and levels is actually pretty bit good to work with the curves. So this is just a bunch of, oh, that actually worked out really well. So there's a bunch of different aspects that you guys can do, but then now I feel like my animal, my Guerline is looking pretty good. So once you guys are ready to export, all you have to do is literally go File, Export, and I just do quick export as a PNG. And so I'll just title it Playing Darwin and put that into my Photoshop folder. And there it is. So super, super easy. So now I'm going to show you guys how to go ahead and combine two different animals using some different tools, but still getting the same effect. So for this one, just to recap, the 3 tools that we used here were a layer mask. So down here, we used layer mask, we used the paintbrush, the brush tool, and also we toggled back and forth between the foreground and background color. And we used a bunch of these adjustments to make sure that one of our animals fit the color really well. All right, let's get started on the other one. All right, guys, now we're gonna go ahead and jump into part 2 of our Playing Darwin assignment. This assignment, we're going to be using 3 different tools to create, it's going to end up being still another animal, but they're just a little bit more advanced, and you have to take a little bit more time and be creative with them. The 3 tools that we're going to be using are the clone stamp tool right over here, and as well as a healing brush tool, and also a bit of the smudge tool and quick selection. So there's a bit more of tools, but like I said, you decide on what you feel is best. So this is what I would like my finished project to turn out as, and this is where I'm starting. So before I ever get started on doing anything with altering photos, I always like to make a copy of the original one just in case everything goes bad and I don't want to permanently damage it. So out and over here in my layers, all I have to do, if I just click Command J, that makes a duplicate of it, and we're all good. So let's say I have my little pig's head over here. So if I want to see what my guy looks like, I want to make sure that I want to erase the ears of the hairless cat, because I want to have room for the pig's ears. I don't want to have to be altering and moving too much, but they definitely have, like, they're looking the same way. It's almost the same kind of pose. So this is making it a really easy object to combine. So first of all, what I usually like to do is try out the spot healing tool. And spot healing tool, what it does, it's just, you kind of go over an area, and the computer is smart enough, or the Photoshop is smart enough, where it's deciding like, oh, I think I know what you want me to get rid of. It could be a very horrific process, as we're watching here right now, or it could be one where it goes pretty easily. There are some other things that you guys could do if you wanted. For example, this is like pretty much a gray background. You could use the eyedropper tool, take a picture of the eyedropper tool, and now it's in my foreground, and I can pick the brush and I can try to color over. And here, as you can see, because the background color is a solid color, it's actually working out really, really well. It's when you have a lot of patterns that sometimes it won't work. So just racing around here. And remember, this is just me painting over. But if I had made a mistake, I know I could just take it off and the ears are there. But if you see, like, if I painted anywhere else, it's not going to work too well. But I also did choose a brush that has some soft edges, so it's not one that's too jarring. All right, so right now I feel like my little hairless cat has lost enough of his dignity and pride. So I'm gonna bring in my little pig. So super easy. I'm going to drop him in actually into a separate tab. I know in the first one I put in the the guinea pig on top of the lion and erase away. But this one here, I just want to click and use the little pig's head. So here, this is when we're going to be using a bit of quick selection. So quick select tool, make sure that I'm on the right deal. And I just want the pig's head, but if you wanted to get a bit more, you are welcome to do that. Let's get a bit of his neck here. Then I'm gonna select and mask because I wanna make sure that I get those edges. And as you can see, this is actually not the best quality picture that Mrs. Gatch could have chosen, but in the end, I think it's gonna work out because we're not gonna be printing these on huge amounts of paper. So refine edge, probably one of the most beautiful things that Photoshop has ever made. It just makes me emotional even going through this right now. I love it so much. All right, and then when I'm done with my select and mask and doing my refine edge, it depends on how you want to do your output settings. I like to decontaminate the colors, and then I like to replace it as a new layer, not as a layer mask. So do that. There is my cute little pig, and I'm just gonna select him and drag him into my hairless cat. Yay! So right now it's very sad because his head is tiny. So I need to transform, Command T, and now start putting him and adjusting him around. So can turn it, and it's okay that it's not fitting perfectly because we're still going to be doing a bit of erasing. All right, so he's looking pretty awesome. Now I still need to take away a bit of the pig, like especially in this area here. So I'm going to do one of the same tools that I used last time, which is apply a layer mask, and get my brush and then start erasing little by little, because I just want to make sure that he fits and it's not taking over. So remember, if I did too much, you just flip and then go back. Those are some very creepy eyes. And then I want to make my brush, I'm a little bit smaller if I want to get into these like little corners over here. All right. And then you can do a little more of Command T if you wanted, just to make the pig's head bigger. It's truly horrifying. I'm really glad I'm making this. All right. So there we go. So right now I'm like, yes, this pig hairless thing is looking pretty good. But there's actually some other things that you guys can do that's really creative. So a fun tool that I like to use is called, I should not have done that actually, is the clone stamp tool. So clone stamp tool is right here. And when you do a clone stamp, it basically what it does is that you take a picture of something. So it's like almost that's the ink. And then your stamping is like you're painting over and then you're just duplicating it. So to take a picture, to start off with like your ink or your stamp, is you hit Option. See, it creates this little area here. So I'm just going to show an example. Actually, I'm going to bring up my opacity so you can see. So take a picture, and then now, actually, this is a good mistake that I did this. I was not on the right layer. How humiliating. I need to make sure I am on a layer where I can take a picture of something. So take a picture of this, and then now, as you can see, there is how my stamp tool is working, and there's almost like a little plus sign where it's showing you where it's pulling it from, okay? So, but that was a mistake that I actually have seen a lot of students do, and obviously you saw I do it. You need to make sure you are on a layer where there's something to take a stamp of, because if I take away these backgrounds, I was literally taking a stamp of nothing, and the computer is telling you as well, like, you know nothing, this is blank. So, come over here, and I'm actually I really like these wrinkles, but if you notice one thing, if I take a picture of that clone stamp and I paint over my pig, so now I got to go to my piggy, it's almost like a little bit too jarring. So this is when I like to bring down the opacity a little bit. So I bring down the opacity, and I had it at 33, and I think it actually worked really well. And then you're just going to kind of like paint over. So it does this nice combination of, so I go back to my little cat, take another picture of this creepy stuff, go to my piggy and paint over his face. And it just gives it that texture, it gives it that layer. So it's one more level of just authenticity to your Sixth Science experiment. And you'll notice that sometimes it's still picking up the cat in the background, and so you have to like make sure you take pictures like take a stamp again and then go over, and you can adjust. You can adjust your opacity, you can adjust how it works. But for right now, I think this looks okay. If I felt like I didn't like what was happening here, you could just do Option Command Z, which is like work backwards, and then it keeps it, you know, you go back to what it was. A few other things that you guys can do. One tool that I really like is there's like the smudge and the blur tool, which is all, it's like what it does. So if you're gonna, you can drag it along and it kind of softens those edges so you're smudging them. And there's also blur, which just helps soften those edges. So there's a lot of things that would work out well. Finally, if you guys wanted to add a bit more of adjustments to this, you could totally do that as well. If you're on the layer with like your little pig head, you can just do a quick selection, and I'm fairly sure it would just select your object really quickly. And then you can do a bit of minus, so you know you just want your head, because whatever my quick selection has chosen, that's what it's going to alter. So here, and then now I'm going to go ahead and add an adjustment. So I probably wonder if I'm going to go to levels. Okay, and then now we can mess around a bit with this just to see what would work well and make it more authentic. And there's a lot of things you can do. Once you have your quick selection done, you can go and you can adjust, make it brighter. You can make it, adjust the contrast, desaturate it, see what works best. So there's a lot of things that you guys can keep in mind. And because this is a mask, as you can see, I just picked the right brush and I can erase what I want. So there's a lot of power in those layer masks and those adjustments. But for right now, I feel really emotionally connected to this awful, awful creature. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, Export as a PNG, and I'm all good. So my section, my hairless pig. Weird. The tools, remember, that we used here were the we used a bit of the spot healing brush tool, but then we also decided to use the brush tool and the eyedropper because we took a copy of the color. We used the clone stamp tool as well as down here, not this one, here we go, blur and smudge. So like I've told you in class, there are a million different ways to do this project. I just showed you two that I found really worked for me, but if you guys want to go on YouTube and look up all the different kinds of tutorials, go for it. I cannot wait to see what you guys create. Good luck.